To prepare for your chalk today, you're gonna need to put your oil pastels in your rainbow order, just like we did yesterday. It's okay if there's a couple colors missing. You're gonna also use white and black, and those can stay in your tray. I also wanna remind you that yesterday we learned how to clean them off if they're dirty. You don't need to clean all of them, just only the colors that you might be using. So you should have your image of your object and your glue. It's okay if you want to go off of the real image, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to be inspired by it, that is okay too. So mine was of this succulent design, and in my image it went from yellow to kind of this turquoise. So I'm going to do something inspired by that and then create a background as well using those techniques that we discussed yesterday. One thing I would recommend is turning your paper often, getting rid of your dust, like we talked about yesterday, by putting it in the center of your table, and making sure that you're not over blending, because then your colors will disappear. So I'm gonna do the same technique for each of my little petals of my succulent. I'm gonna go from yellow but I don't want it to be this super, super bright yellow, so I'm gonna add a layer of white on top. I'm not worried about all the dust, I'm just leaving it the way it is. And then I want a tint of turquoise on the tips of each petal. Because I want them to look round, I'm putting a little turquoise on as like a shadow. And when that blends together, it's gonna make a little bit of green. So I want the blend to be smooth, but I don't want all of my petal to be perfectly smooth. So all of that dust that I have, I'm gonna knock off onto my table and create a nice little pile. If your chalk doesn't go all the way up to the edge of your glue line, you can use your finger. And just keep your fingers clean. Every once in a while, knocking the dust off. If you're not happy with the blend, go back in and add another layer. Just be careful not to overdo it, and be careful not to overblend with a tissue or your finger. So I'm gonna do each of my petals like this, fast forward. So now that I've got the succulent finished, it is okay if this is all you do today. That took quite a while, and I've done this before, so it does take quite a while. You want to make sure that there's not really any black spaces showing, even right up against the glue lines. And again, make sure you're tapping your dust so that it doesn't make a huge mess. I'm going to use a different technique for the background and different colors, contrasting colors. So these yellows and greens are on one side of the color wheel, so I'm going to use kind of the purples, pinks, and reds that are on the other side of the color wheel so that it stands out. I'm also going to use a different technique where I'm not blending as much so that it contrasts from my image as well. So I think I'm going to use kind of more texture in the background. Since my succulent is so soft, I'm going to kind of use these cross-hatching marks for my background. So I'm going to make my marks go from red to purple, I think. Maybe red to orange to yellow. And then, like I said before, I'm not going to blend the background as much because I want it to be in contrast. So I'm just very, very lightly softening up those hatching lines. And I might not soften up any more of it. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through this part.